These things do not like the light of consciousness on them. Even the pain body, your pain body, does not like to be recognized. Yes, we haven't spoken about the pain body yet. So, well, you all know what this term refers to. Accumulated emotional pain that you carry forward from your childhood, usually, perhaps also from past lifetimes. If you believe in past lifetimes, if you don't like past lifetimes, forget about it. Carried over from childhood, and it is partly personal because it's to do with your early life experience, which for everybody is somewhat painful, and for some much more than for others. And you also absorb pain body from the collective into which you're born, which could be the country or the energy field or a particular area in your country, whatever it may be. You also absorb that. So there's a personal aspect to the emotional pain that lives in you. And there's a collective aspect. And the pain body, just a very, very brief summary, the pain body is not necessarily, in most cases, always active. It has a dormant stage and an active stage. When it's dormant, you may not even know it's there. And periodically, the tendency is for the pain body to need to feed on further experience of something emotionally painful. So, because that is what corresponds to the vibrational frequency of this energetic entity, because that's what it is. Emotion is an energy form. It's consciousness. Everything is consciousness. Consciousness had taken on a particular form. An emotion is a temporary form that consciousness is born into, assumes. And what childhood pain, emotional pain, usually leaves behind remnants of that particular emotion. It's not completely released. So by the time you are 18 or 20 years old, you carry a pain body. And for some humans, it's a very heavy thing. For others, it's not too bad. The pain body periodically needs to feed on the experience of emotional pain. In other words, it wants emotional pain, it needs emotional pain, and it creates emotional pain primarily in two ways. Either it creates drama with people close to you so that you get negativity coming back at you, and then you can have the drama in relationships. Favorite place for pain body to renew itself is intimate relationships. That's the best. You get the best food in intimate relationships, and it will create drama and push the buttons. It has a borrowed intelligence. It has its own little intelligence, and it is cunning. It's a little like a gremlin kind of, and it knows your partner's weak points, and it'll touch upon them in order to provoke them into reacting with drama. And usually it works, because then you press the correct buttons, you awaken the other person's pain body. It goes, oh, great, I'm here too. And so at that moment, you don't want to let go of it. If your therapist at that moment rang you and said, do you want to be in this drama, or do you want to be free? You would get very angry, because you wouldn't be talking, the pain body would be talking through you, and you'd be saying, get away from me, this is not about pain bodies, this is serious stuff, I don't want to hear what you have to say. Leave me alone with that nonsense, pain body. The pain body does not like to be recognized, because that means the light of consciousness is shining on it. Now, what do you do if you don't have an intimate relationship? That gets a bit more difficult. How can you renew? Oh, the pain body says, that's okay, I have the perfect solution. When I need to feed, I will rise up into your mind and I will control your thinking. And every thought will be a negative thought about yourself, about other people, about life in general, or about politics, some deeply negative thought, and then it becomes, the thought is not just one thought, it's addictive thinking, addicted to negative thinking. How my life is so awful, or this person is so awful, or this is absolutely dreadful. Whether it's predominantly anger, predominantly self-pity, or whining, or shouting, whatever it is, you are trapped in a cycle of negative thinking, continuously feeds, because thought is energy too. Everything is thought. Again, is a form, that every thought is a form that consciousness has taken, temporary form. It's a little entity, every thought. And that gives energy. The pain body gobbles it up. It loves your negative thinking, because the more negative thinking, the stronger it gets again. But after a while, it's had enough. It's like a big meal, then you can't eat anymore. And then suddenly it goes back to sleep, and you feel, oh, what was all that about? And sometimes if it's in a relationship, you make up. So then suddenly everything is fine again, and it's like you both wake up out of some kind of weird nightmare. But the strange thing is, this weird nightmare happens every 2 weeks, or 3, or every once a week, who knows? Maybe once a month, or every 3 months. It varies a lot. But it comes again and again. And until you begin to recognize it for what it is, then the awareness comes in. Once you recognize it, it can no longer, first of all, it can no longer use your mind to renew itself, because you recognize it directly. Say, there it is, I can feel the emotional pain. And then you may be able not to be totally controlled by it when it tries to create new drama in the relationship again, or your partner. It arises in your partner, and you can clearly see that some dark energy comes. Some dark energy comes into him or her, and suddenly it's a bad. If you see it for the first time, after getting married, you start living together, and then for the first time you see in your partner the pain body. For many people, that is the first time when they question whether they've chosen the right person. Wow. Now, another strange thing about the pain body, it is a vibrational entity. It can sometimes attract, because there are entities floating around in this universe that we cannot see. There's a vast amount of things that we cannot see. Our senses are very limited. So there are entities whose vibrational frequency corresponds to the frequency of the pain body. A bit like what you can see, it's like in the reality that you can see with your senses. It could be compared to perhaps vermin, as we call it, rats, a rat infestation in your house, or cockroaches. So there are psychic correspondent, a bit like cockroaches or rats in the unseen realms, that can sometimes be attracted by strong pain bodies. And when that happens, the pain body gets, so they cling to your pain body, almost merge with it, and then the pain body can be incredibly heavy and become really dangerous. And usually it happens to people who are either very, very unconscious, or people who are addicted to drugs, which lowers very much your consciousness, or alcoholics, lowers very much your consciousness, or have some deficiency in their mind. So it happens to them that their pain body attracts other entities to them, and then they could perpetrate most dreadful crimes. And often it's sometimes again, they are not always in the grip of it, but it's there, it's latent, it's waiting. And sometimes people who know these people, they say, how could he have done this? I know him, he's a nice guy. How could he have killed and dismembered 6 people? What? He was such a nice person. I was at school with him. What they didn't see was his pain body, and when his wife might have seen it. I don't know if she's still alive, but so it is possible that some entities cling to your pain body, and as you bring more consciousness to it, which simply means to be aware of it, then whether or not your pain body, whether there are other entities that have come, and it might be not as bad as those entities that lead somebody to commit dreadful crimes, but little things, little bugs, unseen bugs can come in, and it is quite possible in your case, now we finally come to your question, that as you become more conscious and direct consciousness, then the pain body, it would be hard for these entities to continue to cling to your pain body, especially if they're not overpowering, which in your case, this is not, I can see that's not, you're not going to kill and dismember a few people. So these are not overpowering entities. They are little things that cling to your pain body, but if left unattended, it could get worse. But it's because you're growing in awareness, I believe that's the explanation, but I don't know if that is the explanation, but it seems to me that it is, that these things do not like the light of consciousness on them. Even the pain body, your pain body, does not like to be recognized, because it knows when you identify it and you can feel it, you put your attention on it, it doesn't like your attention, because it then cannot use your mind anymore. So if you put your attention on it, there may be things that suddenly believe, oh, I can't stand this anymore, this person is becoming too conscious. Things leave, the pain body becomes lighter. So the pain body can even, I told a story in, I believe, in New Earth, when I saw somebody for counseling session, and we had a wonderful release of this person's pain body. It was like a big chunk went, and I don't know where it went, but it went up into the air. There are similar stories in the Gospels too. It's not called pain body in the Gospels, of course. There it sounds more ominous. He was carrying an evil spirit. And then when Jesus came and said, "What is this?" the evil spirit fled and says, "Leave me alone, I can't stand your presence anymore." This is my paraphrase. So the pain body transmutation then happens, because pain body is energy, is trapped energy, that by focusing on it, the energy becomes freed. And I compare it to you could say the flame of awareness or the flame of consciousness. This energy becomes then part of your presence. It's transmuted into presence. It assumes a higher frequency. It's consciousness too, and it becomes presence. It's a bit like, you could say, if you have a piece of ice, and the ice is very hard, and you could kill somebody with a piece of ice, but when it gets transmuted, it becomes soft and fluid. And when it gets transmuted even more, it becomes vapor. You can't even see it anymore. And that's a bit like consciousness manifesting in different forms. For so-called inanimate matter would be a consciousness that is totally asleep, or almost totally asleep. And then gradually you have different degrees of awakening of consciousness in different life forms, plant life, animal life, human life, and then awakened human life. So all you need to continue to do is to be aware of it, especially when it arises. be aware of it when it's there in relationship. Does it use your mind still? Be very alert so that the emotion does not rise up into your mind and you start thinking negative thoughts. When this happens, immediately know what's happening. When you love your negativity, then you don't really love it, but your pain body loves it. So it's a wonderful, pain body is a great teaching, and it's a great thing it's often people with heavier pain bodies that have a more powerful incentive to awaken spiritually than people with a relatively mild pain body. However, one cannot generalize too much, but there's a tendency for people. It's like you're in a nightmare. If you're in a nightmare, your motivation to awaken is greater than if you're in a relatively pleasant dream. It's not that great, but it's okay. But if you're facing a monster, then you really want to awaken.